Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Signature Resources Limited. It trades on the TSXV under the symbol SGU and on the OTCQB under the symbol SGGTF. It's a Canadian-based advanced stage exploration company, and we're happy to welcome President, CEO, and Director Dan Denbow. Welcome to the conference today, Dan.
Thanks, Anna. I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate everybody joining. And it's an exciting time to be hearing this story as we're going to be advancing on showing how we can expand this resource greatly. I'll just give you a brief introduction to the company. Of course, we have forward-looking statements. You can come back and read those at some point. So we are an established gold project up in Northwest Ontario. It was discovered in 1939. The picture at the top that you can see is a picture of the camp actually from just about a week ago where we're in doing some winterization and getting ready for our drill program. So we're in the Red Lake District of Ontario. We have a 100% owned project with a 32-kilometer greenstone belt that we control. We just published our initial resource of about 762,000 ounces at 1.18 grams per ton. We think we can show very easily how that expands to 1 million ounces within just that established area we've done the work. But then the bigger story is taking it deeper and extending it wider to take it to something that has more like 2 to 3 million ounces, or hopefully something bigger. And then I mentioned 32-kilometer greenstone belt. We've identified 14 targets on that greenstone belt. I'll show you. We've done the flyover work on it. We've identified, as I said, 14 targets. Lingman Lake may not be the best target on the property, but it's the one that was worked on originally, and so that's what we've been focusing our attention on. Just in terms of where we are, directionally, we're in Northwest Ontario, right next to the Manitoba border. The Monument Bay project, which was owned by Yamana previously, now owned by OnGold, is about 60 kilometers to our northwest. Musselwhite, which was just bought by Orla Gold, is 200 kilometers to our southeast. And then the historic Red Lake mining camp, everybody knows about, 300 kilometers to our south from us. The improving regional infrastructure is key to the story because we are remote. We are fly in, fly out today. But just last year, the Watay Power Project added grid power 40 kilometers to our east at the Satchko Lake First Nations. And then Manitoba is working on bringing all-season roads into the First Nations groups in northern Manitoba. That's getting additional focus just due to the fires they had this last year, where these communities were completely cut off. So they're working on improving the road structure. There's big demand for that. That would put all-season roads 40 kilometers across from us to the west and would allow us to connect to that easily once we're going towards building a mine. We hope that they'll continue to put focus on that and drive those roads to those communities. Those communities badly need that connection to the infrastructure. As I mentioned, we have a 32-kilometer greenstone belt. These are the claims on the greenstone belt. In the green, the outline, the area that's outlined over here is controlled by another company. They bought it from a forestry company. They bought those patented claims. At some point, we'd love to close that donut hole, but we don't need it at the moment. We're working around where it's circled the Lingman Lake project, and we have those patented claims. The rest are state claims that we control. This is what the greenstone belt looks like. I call it our little amoeba, the way it's shaped, this funny little shape. Down in the northwest, the reason we haven't controlled that, it's more platinum, palladium, multi-element. It's not gold-focused. The rest of it is gold-focused, and that's what we're working on. We covered over 24,000 hectares in this greenstone belt. This is the drilling that we've done, 43,000 meters. I'll talk a bit about east and west, or I'll talk a lot about east and west. It's referring to this diabase dike that cuts the drilling. This was post-mineralization, but it divides where we've had the drilling in the past. You can see the drilling is much more dense on the east side than it is on the west side, and you'll see that in the resource as well. You can also see the gray underground workings that were put in the early 40s by the old timers that was driving on the grade, and you'll see that show up in a couple of places too. This is our geologic model that we've done with WGM as our consultants, looking at the high and moderate grade within our deposit. But also we did some work with Leapfrog in terms of the AI looking in the database to see where there were data gaps and where there were good potential for drilling to expand the resource. We drilled on this AI data, I call it a blob, that's from a very technical term, and then right here on this one as well. Those were both very successful. We had 2 holes in each last year. So last year we did 4,730 meters in drilling, 8 holes west or east of the dike, 6 holes west of the dike. And where I talked about the AI blob coming together, it was right here in the middle. And we also saw the zones merge, and you'll see why that's important in a minute. But we had very long intercepts on this hole 6 and 7 right here, 54 meters at 1.14 grams, and then 47 meters at 2.43 grams. But they also had very high-grade intercepts within those long reaches of that. So we're seeing good high-grade length as well as good envelope gold, which helps with when you're looking at designing the pit itself. Then on the west side of the dike, we drilled 6 holes, 13 and 14 on the furthest west. I'll reference those because we're going to step out almost 600 meters past those with our drill program that's coming up. These 2 holes here were what the AI identified. Those were also very successful in terms of long width of intercepts of moderate grade mineralization, but also good high grade intercepts within it. This shows you within the drilling the grade traces are the drilling that we did last year and how they fold into the model itself. So in terms of the resource, we've been working towards publishing our initial resource, kind of put a stick a flag in the ground and say what it is it gold, is it worth having? And I think our resource model definitely demonstrates this a worthy project for more capital. In total, we had a 0.3 gram per ton cutoff grade, 762,000 ounces when you total it at 1.16 grams per ton. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of the old assays that were done by the previous companies, they did not assay the entire hole. They only assayed where they thought the high grade was. So those holes carried zeros or blanks. And that left a lot of gold outside on those holes that should have been included in the model. I'll show you where some of that is and why that's important. But we think with just that, we can upgrade the resource with infill drilling by getting some of those zeros converted into actually assay gold. This is a model how it looks, inferred and indicated. The density only has a small part of the indicated. It can be easily upgraded with additional drilling. And then the other thing to take note is outside the pit, notice all the mineralized blocks. Outside the pit, that either if you increase the pit just because of gold price, we use 2750, now we're at 4,000, or if west and pull the pit in, we think there's at least 150,000 that comes in. The other thing to note on the west, as I talked about the density, you can see how the mineralized blocks are disconnected or on islands just by infill drilling, because we don't believe these zones are broken up, and we've shown that on the east side of the dike. Just by infill drilling, we should be able to connect these islands and draw in ounces on the west side. We have 5 gold zones that we look at within the model. We have the west zone, which is the orange on the west side, of course. We're being very creative with our naming cultures. But you notice how it separates in between. I think this ends up being 2 zones here. This looks more like the south zone, and then these all model like the north zone. So I think we end up splitting this into 2 zones as we get more drilling. But then you can see on the other side of the dike, we have the north, the central, the south, and then the teal color is 11650, which is the smallest zone. But I think we also know why that is as well, as we've done some additional work. When you look at the cutoff grade, 0.3 grams per ton is what we used. And that came in at 1.16. But if you incorporate the whole pit itself, it's a conceptual pit, but if you used everything, you still have 0.92. So that helps your strip ratio and helps your economics if you just assume you take all of it and process it at these gold prices. What is even more impressive to us, if you cut it down to 1.0 grams per ton, your grade goes to 1.99. That's 531,000 ounces sitting at the top. So why does that occur? If you can see the red and the bright purples, that is the highest grade. You can see how much of it sits in the top of this pit construction. So that allows you to have a much higher grade at the very top. The other thing I want to point out with this section, though, if you see the grays within these modeled zones, we know just from our work across it that these zones aren't disconnected like this. This is just where there were not assays done on those holes because they didn't contain what they saw as the structure or higher grade. And you can see that over here as well. Just by infill drilling, we should be able to convert those from grays, which are basically no grade, into more moderate grade of 0.2 to 0.7. It's not great, but it's ounces that you're going to have to move anyway. Those rocks are going to have to come into the pit. So they become economic ounces as you pull those in. So just by infill drilling, that's pretty good additions. Most of the time when you do infill drilling, grade comes down because you're adding lower grade tonnage. Where you have the tonnage, we're going to actually upgrade the grade on that tonnage that has 0. So that's a positive add. This is what the mineralized pit looks like. This is cumulative grade shells, or cumulative grade at 0.30. You can see that there is one place that we can easily fill in down here in this donut hole. I mean, that's going to have gold. It just has to be drilled out. But I think what's even more interesting is when you look at it on a cutoff grade of, working from 1.0 down to the 0.3, the red is the 1.0 cutoff grade. And you can see how much is in that higher part that I talked about. And then you can see also that higher grade is, a lot of it is sitting outside the pit as well. So as we capture those, it is capturing ounces that would be at that 1.99 grams per ton or better coming into it. So that shows you the ability to upgrade the resource. So what do we know from the resource? We know that we have ounces that can be found within the pit itself. We know it's open east and west, but we also know it's open at depth as well because those zones continue through the bottom of it. With this resource, now we can go back and incorporate past work we've done. And we did this IP study. Simcoe Geoscience did it for us, looking at anomalies. And what we're looking at in these anomalies is the chargeability and recessivity and the correlation to mineralization. And on this plan view, it's 3 kilometers wide, 1.8 kilometers, 3 kilometers wide, 1.8 kilometers north-south. And this study goes down to 500 meters. All of our drilling so far is really only within the top 200 meters. We're really only scratching the surface of it. But you can see all the anomalies across this plan view that they identified that are off the area we're working. We're only working on this area here. They also identified 23 drill targets that we should go back and test some of these anomalies on it. So what does that study look like and how does that help? So if you look at chargeability and recessivity, high chargeability and low recessivity correlate very well with the mineralization. So what we have here are graphs of chargeability, recessivity. We've overlaid the 2024 drill program just for spatial reference to see where you are within it. You can see in the top, that's chargeability, how it starts lighting up at 175 meters depth. And then on the low recessivity, the same thing. This low recessivity anomaly carries across the entire area that was studied, except for right here in the middle where there's a quartz feldspar porphyry, a QFP. That's why the central zone has lower grade than the north and south zone, is because this QFP is a little more chopped up. But you can see how strong this anomaly is and how it carries all the way through. What's even more interesting when you look at this, there's another anomaly here that we have not drilled on or even looked at that's down to the south. And we have these repeating across the property where there's areas showing up. So there's a lot more to be done outside of the area that we've been working on ourselves. I'm going to show you some sections. This shows you where the sections we're going to look at are. And I don't mean for this to get too technical, but I think the pictures paint a great way. We're going to work to the east, starting right next to the diabase dike. Then I'll come back and work to the west. This shows you the outline of the pit. You can see these sections, and you can see the drill traces across the top of these sections, and you can see how the gold is lighting up within the purple. And you can also see how all that is occurring right at the top of all these sections. The last thing to note, this last section is outside the pit because it hasn't been drilled on, but I wanted you to be able to see how this anomaly carries straight through and how it lights up the purple, and then how we haven't touched the bottom or the bigger part of the anomaly with our drilling. So that's why we're excited about this. Again, just more corroboration of what I'm saying. This is a gray pit outline. You can see the historical drilling, how it all is in the very top and has not touched the bottom yet. And then this is the mineralized deposit itself within it. And just note how it's chasing the purple. And in that section that we haven't drilled yet, you see how it's charging right towards the purple for that section. So we're going to be working on that. We're going to drill that section in a couple of months. So I'm going to walk through these sections. This is right by the diabase dike, and I'll try to do this quickly. But the one important thing on this section is the north zone has been controlled by something we call the leopard rock, which is this gray outline here. And notice how it thrust to the south. And everything is moved to the south by 25 to 50 meters. We had not seen that previously until we updated this modeling. And now that we overlay it with this IP work, we can see how the mineralization is shifted to the south, and explains why some of our holes that we thought would continue deeper have kind of missed that area. It's because the deeper mineralization is moved off to the south. This is right near the infrastructure, and you can see how the old guys with their, when they were building the underground workings, notice how they were working out on this eyeball here where all the mineralization is. They knew what they were doing and why they built the underground workings out there. We have bulk samples from those underground workings of 9 to 12 grams, very high grade. So they were chasing the same thing that this IP study is showing you. Also notice this hole here, this big spike. So this is, a drill trace with the grade spikes. That's 325 grams per ton over 1.5 meters. We have a lot of high-grade zones. We don't have many shows like that. They just hit a nugget there or something. But it is nice to see that kind of grade within it. But we do have a lot of 40s, 50s that were found in the 1940s within this property. Now I'm going to keep moving out, and you can see, again, a lot of the mineralization spikes around the purple. And then this is moving towards where holes 6 and 7. And I said the zones were merging. And that's what we're seeing as the eyeball is kind of moving towards the bigger anomaly. And so they are merging there. So and we would expect that this high activity of mineralization that you can see here would start repeating in the bigger purple anomaly. And then this is the further east section I'll show you. Again, a good highlight of the mineralization and the activity happening there. And then the bigger purple zone. And then to show you those zones again, just corroborating, notice how they follow the purple. Everything's chasing the purple. And notice how much purple we haven't touched yet with our drilling. So that's our goal. And then moving out east, I'm going to show you the same, or moving out west, same thing. It highlights, follows the purple. We don't have as much drill density out here, so you won't see as many drill holes on these sections. But again, just highlights that it's following the purple. And then this is the section that we haven't drilled on, and it just keeps marching out further. And you can see the west zone, how it follows also the purple. And you can also see it divide, and why I said I think there's really 2 zones. You can see how it's divided in the middle. Again, the point of this is just to show you that while we've done a lot of work and we have 1 million ounces sitting at top, we haven't touched the bottom because we're only down to 200 meters in drilling. So in 2024, our plan was do the drilling to help the resource, get the resource published. For 2025, our plan now is extend it deeper and extend it laterally. If this program is successful, we will extend mineralization 300 meters deeper than what we've recorded so far, and we'll extend it 600 meters to the west. That will take the pit from 1.6 kilometers, 2.2 kilometers. As I said, extend it down 300 meters. So where are we going to do that? That's the plan view is showing where the sections are drilling. This is the first one. We're going to drill 2 holes here, 500 meters and 600 meters. That will put us 90 meters below the deepest intercept we have on this section, and 210 meters below the deepest intercept we have on this. That will extend us down to 490 meters. So that is a very big extension of what is the potential of this deposit. moving back towards back towards the dike, moving back west. This is where the 6 and 7 came together, where we had very good results. We'll also drill a 500-meter hole here. The other thing to note, there's a new anomaly out here that we haven't tested. So previously, I was a bit, didn't like that we had to drill so much in kind of what we might consider waste rock. But now that we see with this IP work, the anomalies out west, we're actually, and that it's shifted to the south, and the anomalies to the south, it allows us to be in testing new areas much quicker in the hole. So this 500-meter hole is going to be very productive in this area. And then again, this is where 6 and 7 merged and had very long intercepts with good grade. And then this is going to be right back to the dike. And the reason this is interesting to us, it's right near the diabase dike. The south zone was 50 meters wide here at surface. The hope would be that this would continue down that top hat into the zone. So we'll do another 500-meter hole here. It'll extend us 190 meters below the south zone and 320 meters below intercepts in the north zone on this hole. Then the next 2 holes we're going to drill out west. I already mentioned this first one. We have not been out here yet. This is 230 meters west of where we drilled 13 and 14, another 500-meter hole right through the heart of this. And then stepping out another 290 meters, another 500-meter hole down through the middle of this, testing this heart. And as I said, if this is successful, extends the pit 600 meters. So we have 14 regional targets outside of the Lingman Lake. Lingman Lake is here at I. We need to start getting out. We've done the flyover work. Now we need to start dropping geologists out, start grab samples, channel samples, proving those up. We would first start out at A and B most likely. We know there's some historical trenching done out there in the 80s. We need to follow up on that. So once we get a really good handle on the Lingman Lake, we can start spreading our wings a bit across this large property. So 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, when I took over, we said, what are we going to do? How are we going to develop value? It's getting a better handle on our modeling, complete a drill program, get the resource out, and now we're going to spread our wings with our drilling. One thing that we have that really is a big improvement for us, or a big benefit for us, is we own our own camp. We have our own drilling rigs. I'm going to show a video here real quick that's just going to show you the camp and show you what it looks like. Of the camp. That gives you a good idea of what it looks like, and it's pretty exciting because that's fresh off the street, and we just had that. So what's the value proposition for Signature? We put out a resource. We control a large greenstone belt with lots of targets. Regional infrastructure is improving. Management and board and insiders own 45% of the company. We're just completing a raise now that will give us the money for drilling moving forward. And so we think that now is a great time because we have a lot of exciting things happening. I really think this drill program, if it can extend as we think, is going to be a real game changer for Signature Resources. This is what the shareholder register looks like. It's retail and insiders. And with that, I'll take questions.
Great. Let me jump into these questions for you. When it comes to, Paul is asking, are there any majors producing in the same vicinity of any of your projects?
Now, the closest would be Musselwhite, which is 200 kilometers to our southeast. That's owned by Orland now. It was owned by Goldcorp. It's been in operations for 18 years. It is a different structure, though. It's a banded iron formation, so it's a little bit different than ours. That's the closest. And then, of course, Red Lake's 300 kilometers away, which I guess in Northwest Ontario terms, that's close, but not on a street basis. It's not close.
And this is Ted asks or says this is an attractive play. How far away are you from production on the top layer, the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak?
I would think we're still several years away because while we do have that ability to, we have what shows a very nice starter pit. We would really want this thing to be closer to 3 million ounces before we'd start putting in the type of infrastructure we'd want to do it, and getting agreements and permitting going through that. So we are still, a few years away. I think the exciting part for us is if we can prove it's as big as we think it is, we can bring in some additional muscle to help us and maybe advance it quicker and kind of get on that flywheel of getting it more advanced.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time and presentation today, and we look forward to following along with your updates.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, we'll be right back.